Hermes has lied to us. Not allegedly, not subtly, boldly. For decades, they've sold us the dream that every Birkin, every Kelly, every stitched seam came straight from the hands of master French artisans. But now, the dream is unraveling.
Recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do. For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton.
Price $23,000, but Guangzhou price $600.
Because, according to explosive new claims, those iconic bags, the ones that cost more than most people's cars, are being made in Chinese factories. Factories. Not ateliers, not workshops in the south of France. This isn't a scandal about quality.
Today's show about luxury bags carefully handcrafted in China. Turns out your quote-unquote made in Italy luxury handbag might have more ties to Chinese factories than to Tuscany. Thanks to viral TikToks from Chinese factory workers, the internet is now in a frenzy.
It's about trust. It's about the billion-dollar lie baked into every Hermes boutique, runway, and sales pitch. Let's be clear, this isn't just a rumor floating around luxury forums. This is being shouted from inside the belly of the beast. Former employees
at Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One is called Nuti from Italy. The second is Weinheim from Germany, and the third is Haas from France. One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD.
Viral factory videos, insider exposés. They're all saying the same thing, that the Made in France label is little more than a marketing prop. Hermes has sold us prestige, but what they may have delivered is production line fashion, dressed up in crocodile leather.
And one piece of the leather is only enough to make one Birkin, okay? And next, the thread. And of course, for Hermes Birkin, the thread is also the best top level. It's called Fil al Chinois from France. This is actually the Rolls Royce in thread. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. And then the hardware. See, this hardware is called 316 hardware. It's also known as the ocean stainless steel because it can withstand the erosion of seawater. It's the best stainless steel. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD. The edge oil.
And if that's true, if Hermes has knowingly misled the world for profit, then this isn't just a PR nightmare. It's brand fraud on a global scale. But here's the kicker. Hermes isn't denying it outright. Instead, they're suing. They're dodging, they're spinning.
Edge oil is imported from Italy. It's called heat seal edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining, it used lambskin imported from France. For each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And also inside, there is a zipper from Riri brand. And the zipper for one bag is 10 USD. And then the cost of human resource. The French artisans is much more expensive than Chinese artisans to finish one bag.
Because the more people dig, the messier it gets. We're not just talking about a few pieces outsourced here and there. We're talking about entire manufacturing lines hidden behind prestige and allegedly protected by NDAs, legal threats.
The human resource cost will be 600 USD. The package, this is not that expensive. It's 10 USD. So now to sum those up, the total cost will be 1,400 USD for one Birkin out of factory. But why Hermes will charge you 38,000 USD for one bag? That's because more than 90% of the price is paid for its logo. But if you do not care about the logo, you just want the same quality, same material, you can just buy from us. Because for our bags, we use exactly the same material, same leather, same hardware, same edge oil.
And industry silence. The fashion world is finally waking up, and the curtain on Hermes, it's being ripped down. It started with a whisper, then a statement, then a flood.
The difference is one, we don't have the logo, so we don't have to pay so much amount of money just for that logo. And second, our human resource is much cheaper. This is why this bag from our factory only costs you 1,000 USD, but even better quality and craftsmanship around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton, you name it. But for this, I am not proud because we were only making our way.
A former Hermes employee, someone who once worked inside the gilded machine, has stepped forward, torch in hand. According to this insider, Hermes's claims about exclusive French craftsmanship are nothing but smoke and mirrors.
Vuitton and Chanel will hate me if I tell you this, revealing the secret behind big brand. Let's go! Hang Long from Singapore, or Bodin Jurax for their landscape from France. Tannery Haas, Italian Tannery, Fight. Labri Tecna from Italy. Guess where I found all those secret suppliers? All in APIF.
Hermes clearly purports that all of their bags are handmade in France and their watches are made in Switzerland. In their verbiage, there is no room for confusion about where their products are manufactured. There's no room for China. But in the beginning of that video, that nice Chinese man is clearly standing in front of what appear to be Hermes bags, saying,
While the brand proudly slaps Made in France on its products, a significant portion of their production, particularly for their most coveted bags, is allegedly outsourced to China. Let that sink in. The Birkin, long considered the crown jewel of luxury, is potentially coming off an assembly line in Guangzhou. The whistleblower didn't just drop vague accusations, they described factory layouts, they named locations, they detailed how materials were shipped in bulk from Europe to Asia, and how finished products were quietly funneled back under the guise of French origin. And they didn't act alone. Their claims were echoed by former logistics staff and even a subcontractor in Shenzhen, who claims to have overseen luxury item finalization for several high-end European clients. Hermes, of course, is the crown jewel on that list. But what truly sent this into overdrive wasn't just the allegations themselves, it was the consistency. Other former staffers, some anonymous, some public, began sharing eerily similar stories. Accounts of aggressive secrecy, NDAs that threatened, lifelong silence, and pressure to look the other way when production volume far exceeded what French facilities could realistically produce. This isn't one rogue ex-employee with a grudge. This is a pattern, a system, a strategy. And if it's true, Hermes hasn't just duped its customers, it's built an empire on a fantasy that millions bought into, literally. Because if you paid $20,000 for a bag you thought was handcrafted in France, and it turns out it came from a hidden warehouse in China, are you holding a luxury good? Or the world's most expensive lie? More revelations were coming. And the next ones wouldn't be from ex-employees. They'd be from the very people stitching the bags themselves. And when that footage leaked, everything changed. What started as a murmur in fashion circles exploded into a digital firestorm, on TikTok of all places. Chinese factory workers, many young, many anonymous, started posting behind-the-scenes videos exposing the luxury world's dirtiest secret. They were making Hermes bags. Not knockoffs, not fakes. Real bags, real crocodile, real stitching, real serial codes. And they weren't shy about it. These weren't grainy, shaky clips. They were confident, clear, methodical. One TikTok in, particular went viral within hours. The worker calmly walks through the breakdown of a $38,000 Birkin bag, materials, labor, finishing. The total? Around $1,400 to produce. Viewers were stunned and then enraged because suddenly the absurd markup wasn't just about luxury, it was about deception. This wasn't, you're paying for exclusivity. This was, you're paying for a label that's lying to you. Other videos soon followed, workers showing off pallets of leather skins tagged with European brand codes, bags being packed into discreet, unbranded boxes. One even claimed that certain bags were partially constructed in China, then shipped to France just for the final stitch, solely so Hermes could legally label them Made in France. That one stitch? That was the cover story. The comment section turned into a war zone. Buyers who had saved for years to afford their forever bag were furious. Collectors who flaunted their exclusive pieces were suddenly embarrassed. Fashion influencers went radio silent. And the resale market panicked. Because when the myth breaks, so does the value. And this wasn't just online outrage. TikTok creators, with millions of followers, began stitching the factory clips with analysis, satire, and straight-up rage. They called out the industry, the markups, and the silence of luxury houses. Even beauty gurus and fashion commentators started switching gears, replacing Hermes haul with expose-style content. Suddenly, the orange box wasn't aspirational. It was incriminating. This wasn't a random leak. It was a coordinated collapse of Hermes' most sacred narrative, happening one TikTok at a time. And the brand knew it, because the next thing that happened wasn't a statement. It was a threat. Hermes didn't issue an apology. They didn't address the videos head-on. They didn't even try to explain the accusations. Instead, they lawyered up, and fast. Within days of the TikToks going viral, Hermes filed lawsuits in multiple jurisdictions, targeting Chinese manufacturers, anonymous whistleblowers, and even social media platforms accused of allowing defamatory content to spread unchecked. They claimed defamation, breach of confidentiality, intellectual property theft. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a legal move. It was a warning, a shot across the bow to anyone else thinking of exposing what they called fabricated narratives. In court documents, Hermes doubled down on their official position that their products are crafted by highly trained artisans in France, adhering to traditional methods of excellence. Not a word about the viral cost breakdowns, not a syllable about TikTok. And that silence, that selective language, it said more than any denial could. Insiders believe the lawsuits are as much about intimidation as justice. Several smaller Chinese manufacturers allegedly received cease and desist letters riddled with legal jargon and threats of international action. Some deleted their videos. Others went dark entirely, but a few bravely fought back, claiming they had receipts, invoices, shipping records. Some even teased documents they say prove Hermes knowingly outsourced production under dummy corporations. Meanwhile, Hermes' PR team scrambled, but their strategy wasn't transparency, it was distraction. A new collection was launched. A celebrity ambassador campaign suddenly went live. Influencers were quietly re-engaged with fresh content drops, damage control disguised as business as usual, but it wasn't working because the story was already out. Screenshots were saved, clips were reposted, lawsuits couldn't erase the internet. And for every video Hermes tried to silence, 5 more popped up dissecting the brand's response. Hermes had entered a new battlefield, and their carefully controlled narrative was bleeding out. The next phase? Even bigger. Because now, the public wasn't just watching, they were digging. And what they uncovered next would send chills through the luxury world. Let's talk numbers. Cold, undeniable numbers. Because no matter how many PR statements Hermes pumps out, math doesn't lie. According to the whistleblowers, the real cost of producing a $38,000 Birkin bag hovers around $1,400. That's materials, labor, logistics, everything. The rest, a 200-600% markup, and for what? Not French artisanship, not hand-stitched magic, but brand mystique, manufactured exclusivity, smoke. This breakdown wasn't just a jab, it was a nuclear bomb dropped on the illusion of luxury. The factory workers didn't just show materials and stitching, they showed how the game is played. Leathers sourced wholesale, skilled but underpaid workers, efficient production timelines, and most damning of all, processes nearly identical to what you'd find in mid-tier handbag factories, just with exotic skins and nicer lighting. Even the packaging, the orange box, the dust bag, the ribbon, was calculated into the markup narrative. Viewers quickly realized they weren't paying for quality. They were paying for theater, for the story. And suddenly, people who had bragged about owning a Birkin were now asking themselves if they'd been scammed. Luxury isn't about price, it's about perception. And Hermes built that perception brick by brick on the idea that every bag was a work of art, born in a French workshop by someone who had trained for years. But if that foundation cracks, if the public believes those bags come from factory belts in China, the entire house collapses. Financial analysts even started weighing in. Some questioned whether Hermes' valuation, which relies heavily on brand, loyalty, and resale strength, could survive a scandal this deep. If the $38,000 bag is really just a $1,400 product with good PR, what does that say about the $15,000 Kelly, the $7,000 Eveline, or even the $2,000 belt? It says luxury might be the world's most expensive illusion. And consumers? They're not. Staying quiet. Because when the veil drops and people realize their investment piece was really just a high-margin export hidden behind an embossed label, things get ugly. Fast. Social media turned into a courtroom. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, every platform became a stage where Hermes was dragged, dissected, and mocked. But it wasn't just anonymous users and fashion bloggers throwing punches. Big names stepped in. And when celebrities start talking, the world listens. Some luxury collectors, once proud Hermes loyalists, began posting videos in disbelief, unboxing their collections not with pride, but regret. Influencers with entire platforms built on flaunting luxury started archiving their content, scrubbing Hermes tags, distancing themselves from the brand before they got caught in the crossfire. But then came the big blow. Celebrities. Real ones. A-list actresses and models subtly stopped carrying Hermes on red carpets. Paparazzi shots began surfacing of once devoted fans, now clutching Loewe or the Row instead. One actress, who has previously boasted about her Hermes collection, in Vogue quietly auctioned off her entire Birkin stash and donated the proceeds to garment worker rights groups. The message, loud and clear: I won't be part of this anymore. Fashion insiders whispered that stylists had been instructed to avoid Hermes for editorial shoots. One even leaked a text thread where a celebrity PR agent flat out told their client, "Archive the orange, we're not taking the risk." And then there were the callouts. A viral YouTube creator known for exposing fashion frauds directly tagged Hermes ambassadors, asking why they were still silent. Some stayed quiet, but others responded cryptically, hinting at ongoing contract disputes or legal sensitivities, implying they knew more than they could say. Behind the scenes, it got even messier. Rumors swirled that a major Hermes campaign featuring a pop superstar had been shelved. Not because of scheduling, but because she refused to endorse the brand after seeing the TikToks. Her team allegedly told executives, "We don't back." Brands that lie to women. And it wasn't just public figures. Everyday buyers began demanding refunds, sending angry emails, returning used bags just to protest. Forums like Purseblog and the Fashion Spot turned into battlegrounds, with users debating whether Hermes would ever recover. Some even speculated about a class action suit because if you bought something labeled "Made in France" and it wasn't, that's not just a scandal, that's fraud. Hermes tried to drown it all out with silence, but silence, in a scandal this loud, only makes the outrage louder. And the celebrities distancing themselves, that was the kiss of death. Because when the stars walk away, the followers go with them. And next, the people started following the money. And what they found would drag Hermes even deeper.